Hello, my name is Sarah Brown from the Lockdown Patchwork Project. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm going to be showing you how to use the method of quilting which is known as Quilt As You Go. If you've been stitching along with me throughout the last 100 days, you will have a selection of blocks and you may be wondering what to do next with them. So to use this method of Quilt As You Go, you need 3 pieces of fabric. One is obviously your block, which is represented by this piece of white fabric, which I'm using so you can see what I'm actually doing. Then you need your wadding of your choice. In the note that is in the files section under the heading Notes, Hints and Tips, there's some information about all the different waddings and how to use them. And basically each wadding will come with a paper wrapper on it. Read the instructions because that will tell you a lot of the detail you need to know to use the wadding to best effect, how far apart your stitching line can be, and all sorts of things like that. And then you need a piece of fabric, which is your backing. So we have the 3 layers. And then we need to get them fixed together to make life even more straightforward. And for that purpose, we use this product, which is called 505 spray glue. But if you have asthma, please be very careful because this can cause breathing problems for some people. So if we just, oops, I always just spray glue the wadding, not the fabric. There is various opinions as to why you should do one or the other, but this is my choice. So just a little bit of spray glue, and then we then let that dry. While that's drying, let me just show you the next stage. The piece of equipment I want to show you is this piece of metal, which is called a quilting bar. Most sewing machines come with this, and it actually attaches into the back of your sewing machine foot. If you see here, you've got like a rubber holder, and you just push this bar in there and it holds it nice and tight, but you can still revolve it. So what I'm now going to do is set the bar so that it is 1 inch from the point of the needle. So I move that in now, so this is now 1 inch. And for the first row, I don't need this. So I'm just going to push it up out of the way, but it's now set. So on this piece of fabric, you can see that I've drawn 2 lines. One is from corner to corner and the other's from top to bottom. I'm going to do this centre line first. My sewing machine stitch length is set at 3.5 for this purpose. And I'm now going to stitch the straight line straight across the middle, following the pencil line that I've drawn. And it is just a straight line of stitching. And for those of you who are a beginner and you're feeling slightly daunted by all the amazing quilting that you may have seen, and the ruler quilting and free motion quilting, and you're thinking, I can't do this, this is a great place to start because it's all very controlled. Now I'm just going to stitch straight across that line. You've done all of this in some form or other if you have been making blocks along with me. Okay, so we have our first line done. Now that's going to be our guideline. So now I'm going to put the arm down, and that is going to sit on the stitches that I've already stitched. And then I'm going to move the foot in to the point where, like that. Now, I'm now going to quilt the next line, but what I'm watching is this. I'm watching the bar to make sure that bar stays on the stitching line. I'm not watching the needle. Once the needle has engaged and we know it's stitching fine, I'm just watching this the whole time, because if that is straight, my first line is straight, we know it is because it was stitched along a ruler line, and now we have the bar being our guide. Now you can use this method on a 12-inch block, and I'm going to be making all my blocks that I've made up to 12-inch blocks, and I'll show you as I go along. I'm still waiting for my backing fabric to arrive. So I've now done exactly the same. I've moved along. Now, if that line is parallel with that line and I put that bar on that line of stitching and follow it, I'm going to get another parallel line of stitching. And then we're turning it round. Now, the reason I always start from the middle of a block rather than one side is because if you keep stitching the same direction, particularly on a bigger block, then you tend to get a bit of a wind on your top fabric. We know. So we now quilt that. And one more. So if your first line is straight, and now we constantly are using the bar and we're watching the bar in the stitching line. Now, you can leave your quilting just like that if you want to. And there you have perfectly parallel lines of quilting. That might be very pleasing to you, and that is fine. If, on the other hand, you want to make it a bit denser, then what we do is move this arm out of the way, and I'm now going to stitch on the diagonal line across the middle of the block. So again, I'm just going to stitch a straight line straight the way across. Now the bar is still set at 1 inch from the needle point. So if we now go back to here, and I'm going to rest this down onto the stitching, and I'm going to start it from here, and I'm going to quilt. And I'm watching this point here all the time. I'm not watching the needle at all. And it's really important when you're doing something like this. Put the bar down onto the stitching line before you lower the foot. Lower the foot and then stitch. Now you'll see that the wadding and the backing are slightly wider than the patchwork piece, and this is to allow for shrinkage when you're... So bar down onto the stitching, lower the foot, and off you go. Now I'm going to turn it round and go the other way. You can find all the quilting patchwork instructions on the Lockdown Patchwork project page on Facebook. There are, at the point of filming this, we have 46 blocks, and there's also an amazing display both in photos and in albums for you to have a look at and see which blocks you particularly like. And then one last one. Now, can you see the diamonds? And then it's the same on the other side. We now have a perfectly quilted patchwork block. I will be quilting all mine exactly the same. They'll all be made up to 12-inch blocks, and then I'll quilt them all exactly the same, so that if there is any shrinkage, they all shrink the same, so that they will all still fit together. If you have any queries or comments about this video, please mention them in the comments box below, and thank you very much for watching. Please, if you like this video, click like and subscribe. See you next time when I'll show you how to do sashing on your blocks.